Hello and welcome to my thoughts on The Return of Tempest Shadow. If you haven't read it yet, you can click here and I'll read it for you. Alright, everyone ready? Let's go. So, our story starts off with Tempest, going off on her own. She's had enough of Ponyville and she's sick of living with Twilight. She doesn't quite feel like she fits in there, which is understandable. So she heads out across Equestria visiting places such as Pelusa, Shikoku, and Horsalulu. I don't know how they thought they could get away with just replacing the first syllable with horse and calling it a day, but on the other hand, New Horselines, very slick. But for some strange reason, no pony trusts her. Could it be that she's still brandishing the Storm King insignia? Who knows? It's nice that, even though Twilight's pardoned her and everything, she's still trying to atone for her crimes against Equestria, so pretty noble of her. While out on her travels, she hears of this exciting place called the Crystal Empire and decides to pay it a visit. But little does Tempest know, she's about to walk into a nightmare. Filled with love and fluffy bunnies, hell yeah! Okay, IMO, Tempest is a little too harsh on Cadence. Kinda weird that Tempest is friendship? Oh yeah, I totally see the point in that. But love? No effing way. Somehow she fails to see the overlap between the two. So I said this during the Tempest movie prequel, but God, I love how Tempest is written. The discrepancy of her inner narration, which that in of itself is fairly rare in these comics. It's a style of storytelling that's almost never utilized here, versus what she actually does choose to say. She's always very close to the vest with her words, but because we do get her inner monologue, we get to observe and understand this part of her character. But apparently her poker face isn't as good as she thought, because Cadence can see right through her bullshit. Cadence is immediately able to pick up on Tempest's disdain for her, but the moment Cadence calls her out on it, Tempest's cool guy facade shatters and she panics. No, I don't hate you. This moment is actually so cool, because Tempest thinks she has Cadence all figured out, but she doesn't know anything about her. And it turns out Cadence is the one who can read Tempest. But anyway, Tempest gets her quest, and she heads off to the Arctic Patrol office, where dun dun dun, she comes muzzle to muzzle with her ex-bestie, who apparently has no clue what Tempest's been up to since they last met. And now we get to the dichotomy of the case. Glitterdrops thinks they left things off on good terms, whereas Tempest, clearly does not. And with an eagerness to show her old friend how much she's changed, Tempest delivers a banger of a line. She looks hurt. Good. It's so good. One question worth pointing out. What does Tempest mean when she says she's changed? Because that's a very subjective question based on everyone's individual perspective. So we, the audience, know Tempest has gone through a negative character growth. But then enter Twilight, who's only seen her positive character arc since the defeat of the Storm King. But then, let's look at Glitterdrop's point of view. Sure, she's gone up since the Storm King, but to Glitterdrops, Tempest is still at an overall net negative, which Tempest sure loves to show off. But these are traits that the outside world perceives of her. So what changes are Tempest herself referring to? We'll get to that later, cause right now, Tempest's about to kill a bitch. Tempest says she's less angry, but she sure doesn't do a good job at showing it. And I think the reason is, she's actually not any less angry. She just has a little more self-control. When Icy Shank says, "What's wrong with her?" to Glitterdrops and the audience, it's pretty clear that he's talking about her personality. But Tempest presumes he's talking about her horn, because that is the only flaw in herself she perceives. And that's what really gets me about the whole thing. It could have been one of them. She still blames the world for this one random act of fate. Man, this story's getting too serious. You know what we need? A funny fish scene. What a dumb transition. It's so good though. And then Tempest runs off by herself because Glitterdrop sucks. And this is where we get the answer to the question, how does Tempest think she's changed? It's the reason she left Ponyville. It's the reason she can't stand Cadence. It's the reason she thinks less of Glitterdrops for wanting to make small talk. As if I need her help. I'll show her I'm not that weak, little, broken unicorn anymore. She perceives love and friendship as weakness. Her anger about losing her horn just corrupted the rest of her life. She rejects her friends and family, she leaves her country, and she abandons her name. And by shedding these things, she believes she's becoming stronger. And then in an instant, any perceived strength she's gained is gone. Turns out she hasn't changed at all. I love that part 2 begins with Tempest's life flashing before her eyes. It really conveys that Tempest is just gonna lay down and take it. And right before Tempest is about to be killed, Glitterdrops jumps in and blinds the bear. And now we really get to see just how angry Tempest really is. But unlike before, this anger isn't targeted at the world. This anger is much more specific.
I'm angry at myself!
All this time, Tempest thought she had changed. She thought she had become stronger. But everything she had done was apparently for nothing. She was still that helpless little filly in the cave. And then this bitch just casually struts in and saves the day? Hello? This dumb little pony who embraces everything Tempest sees as weakness. Well, Tempest is gonna open up her eyes. See what they did there? She's going to prove just how strong her hatred is by severing her bonds! Or something like... Anyway. And then Glitterdrops is like, I was gonna go in the cave, but you just ran in first! And then Tempest's entire life falls apart. And she second guesses everything. Dun dun dun! And for the first time, Tempest finally experiences change. Let's go! Her worldview is finally starting to shift. The cave incident is no longer a random occurrence. It was now a choice she made. More importantly, a choice she does not regret. And her disdain for Glitterdrops turns to respect. Tempest is able to acknowledge her not only as a pony, but for the strength she has gained. I mean, I wouldn't say her illusions were great and powerful, but effective. And not only for her magical ability, but for her character. She wasn't afraid to jump into harm's way when Tempest needed her help. And even now, she's not just trying to get rid of the Ursa, she's trying to help it get home. And this scene is kind of analogous to a comment she made earlier to Cadence. Everything is pink and fluffy and sweet. It's why it was so easy for the Storm King to conquer this place. But as I recall, he did little more than occupy Canterlot. And yeah, sure, Twilight went off on a little adventure first, but in the end, they were able to not only repel the invasion, but completely dismantle his empire. And it's that fluffy sweetness that is Equestria's true strength, the desire to help more than just themselves. This is a story of love, but not romantic love between two ponies. It's about love of family, love of friends, love of country, love of self. All of which Tempest is finally starting to understand. Alright, that's basically the end of the story. I've rambled long enough. In case you couldn't tell, I think this is really good. Real quick before I end this, here are the edits I made. I did make a small text edit here, just because the threshold for seeing light through closed eyes is very low, and it undersells Glitterdrop's power. And even though Tempest says her eyes are closed, they're clearly drawn open, so I closed them for her. And for these next two, I just thought it'd be cool if I did a little crossfade. Start with the edit, then transition to the original, just for funsies. So for this next one, I don't really bring up when I do edits like this, when a panel's overlapping another panel, but I don't want to show that one yet, so I erase it and then redraw underneath it. I just wanted to point out what a horrendous job I did at this one. But to be fair, look at that goddamn noodle of a body. They set me up for failure. This is not my fault. And that's the hill I'm gonna die on. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and until next time.